More than 3 years ago, I put out my first ever countdown video ranking all 14 roller coasters at Hersheypark in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Since then, the park has invested in a brand new roller coaster called Wildcat Revenge, and a lot of my other rankings have changed. Plus, I wasn't very good at making videos back then, so I definitely felt that it was time for an update. I hope to do this for several other parks too, like Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Six Flags Great Adventure, and more. But for now, I want to talk about Hersheypark's 14 different Scream Machines. This is known to be one of North America's greatest theme parks, mainly due to their extremely diverse collection of roller coasters. After 2023, I think it can even be argued that it's the most diverse coaster lineup in the world. Oftentimes when I tell this to people who are from Pennsylvania or somewhere else in the Northeast, they're shocked. But it's true, you guys have something really special with Hersheypark. I'm very fortunate I've had the opportunity to visit this place on 4 separate occasions, twice of which occurred in 2023. So I'd like to think I have a really good feel for all these coasters and which are my favorites. So let's not waste any more time and jump into my rankings of all 14 roller coasters at Hersheypark. Number 14, Coco Cruiser, opened in 2014. This is Hersheypark's smallest roller coaster, really meant for the youngest of visitors in the park. It was manufactured by Zamperla and is their ever so common family gravity model. You can find an identical layout to this at loads of amusement parks all over the world. Personally, I do find these to be uncomfortable even compared to other kids coasters. However, I don't deny that its intensity is perfect for the little ones and that Coco Cruiser succeeds in what it's trying to achieve. Number 13, Wild Mouse, opened in 1999. If the family gravity coaster was common, the Wild Mouse is really common. There's not exactly a whole lot to say about this ride. For some reason, I decided to try it again during my most recent visit to the park and was reminded how boring and janky it was. Its point is to stimulate the feeling that you're flying off the track, hence why you have all these flat switchback turns at the top. In the second half, Wild Mouse throws in some small dips for diversity, but they're very uncomfortable and don't really do a whole lot. There's not many audiences I feel like I can recommend this ride to, and I feel that it's outdated in the park now, especially considering that the other Wild coaster in the park was renovated. Therefore, I'd love to see Hersheypark replace this coaster with one of Rocky Mountain Construction's Wild Moose rides. That could pay homage to the former attraction and be a much more exciting experience that could help people work their way up to the much larger RMC next door. Number 12, Trailblazer, opened in 1974. This is the park's oldest steel coaster, and to be honest, you can really tell. It is meant to be a family ride, but to me, it doesn't do a whole lot and spends most of its ride time meandering around the park. Trailblazer is one of those classic aerodynamics mine trains that most parks keep around because of its historical significance. Normally I really appreciate that, but even I can't deny that this is one of the weaker mine trains I've ridden and that the park could have done a lot more with it. Still, it's a decent stepping stone coaster for those trying to build their way up to bigger family coasters in the park. Number 11, Super Duper Looper, opened in 1977. This is where the list really begins. As you can see, I haven't had a lot of good things to say about the first few coasters on here, but every single one from this point onwards is worth riding at least once. Super Duper Looper is another very old attraction with some historical significance. It was the East Coast's first modern inverting coaster, and that 57-foot tall vertical loop still holds up to this day. The rest of the ride outside of that is a nice scenic trip around the park's hollow section. For a lot of people, Super Duper Looper is their first time ever going upside down. This was true for my good buddy Lance in 2018, and now he's ridden a lot of the larger rides in the park. Even as a coaster enthusiast, I can't deny that this is a pretty solid attraction and a perfect fit in the park's lineup. Number 10, Laugh Track, opened in 2015. Hersheypark's only roller coaster located indoors, Laugh Track is a unique experience that gives visitors something to do during inclement weather. The ride itself is a spinning coaster by Maurer Rides and a clone of a few other coasters I've ridden. But in my opinion, this is the best iteration because the theming inside the building is quite impressive. I think it adds a lot to the experience flying past funhouse theming, and it gives Laugh Track a lot of charm and personality. I will say, during Halloween they turn off all the lights so that you can experience this coaster fully in the dark, and I wasn't as much of a fan of that. I'd probably put Super Duper Looper above it if it were like that all the time. I think it was a good idea with not so good execution, as the theming really is an integral part of the experience. Plus, even during the spooky season, I still think there needs to be some solid family attractions around the park. Number 9, Jolly Rancher Remix, opened in 1991. I'll admit, this one is a bit of an unfair ranking as I haven't ridden this coaster since it was known as Sidewinder before 2022. This has always been your standard Vekoma boomerang layout with a cobra roll, vertical loop, and 2 lift hills that take riders forwards and backwards. These rides have always been infamous due to their rough nature, but something this boomerang always had regardless of the name and theme was Vekoma's newer vest restraints. This eliminates headbanging and makes the boomerang layout far easier to enjoy. But it still wasn't ever that popular, so Hersheypark decided to do the next best thing and theme it. I haven't experienced this as Jolly Rancher Remix, but I've heard the new thematics are quite cool. There's a new station with Jolly Ranchers hanging from the ceiling and a tunnel before the second lift hill where there are flashing lights and supposedly a Jolly Rancher scent. How accurate it is or how often it's on is something I can't comment on, but I'll have to give it another rather go the next time I'm at Hersheypark. Number 8, Comet, opened in 1946. The park's oldest roller coaster, Comet is still kicking butt 77 years after it originally opened. Hersheypark has done a brilliant job maintaining this ride, as it remains one of the smoothest coasters in the park and a very enjoyable ride. Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters built a lot of classic wooden roller coasters back in the day, and Comet is one of the best remaining examples. Those in the back rows will experience several moments of airtime across 3,360 feet of length. What's great about Comet is it's not too intense but not too tame either. Any member of the family can enjoy this one, and along with Super Duper Looper, I think it's the perfect coaster to ride if you're still getting over your fear of roller coasters. Number 7, Lightning Racer, opened in 2000. The largest wooden roller coaster at the park, Lightning Racer is a pair of dueling side-by-side tracks manufactured by Great Coasters International. Weirdly enough, this ride never seems to have a line when I visit Hersheypark, and I'm guessing that's because of its location way in the back. If this were built towards the front of the park, I wonder if that would be different. Personally, I'd be willing to bet it would be, since Lightning Racer is a fun and underrated coaster. A lot of enthusiasts like to give this ride a hard time since the second half is a lot tamer than the first, and because GCI has built much more thrilling rides. For me, I can definitely understand where people are coming from with the former, but it doesn't bother me so much because you are still racing a train, which is a lot of fun. The latter shouldn't affect this ride at all in my opinion, because I always think you should try and appreciate a ride for what it is. Lightning Racer is a great first half and lots of exciting moments of interaction with the other train. If you're heading to the park and didn't have this one on your radar, I'd give it a ride and maybe you'll be surprised by how good it is. Number 6, Great Bear, opened in 1998. The way I prove that Hersheypark's coaster lineup is stacked is by claiming its 6th best roller coaster is better than anything at nearby Dorney Park. That's not to say that Dorney's lineup is half bad either, but man, Great Bear is a seriously awesome ride. Bolliger and Mabyard built lots of thrilling inverted coasters in the 90s, and I think you could argue that Great Bear is the most unique of all of them. Because of its close proximity with other rides in the area, Hersheypark really had to cram this thing in to make it work. To me, this makes the coaster more exciting, and I can appreciate its unorthodox layout. Rather than a big drop right off the lift hill, Great Bear is a helix way up in the sky before making its descent. Afterwards is a set of 4 inversions, all of which are probably the most normal thing about Great Bear. But in between inversion 3 and 4, the ride has to narrowly avoid other coasters, so it gets really low to the ground, and with that speed absolutely throws you up into that corkscrew. It's a short experience, only 2,800 feet in length, but there's no dead spots, and I think it's a fantastic supporting coaster for this park. Number 5, Fahrenheit, opened in 2008. In my opinion, this is one of the most underrated roller coasters in the country, and it's only at number 5. Fahrenheit is actually one of Hersheypark's more unique coasters because its manufacturer Intamin only ever built one ride of its kind until 2023 when they opened another one in China. Here in the Western Hemisphere, it is still entirely unique and features elements you don't really see on other Intamin coasters. For starters, Fahrenheit starts with a 90-degree vertical lift hill and a beyond vertical 97-degree drop. This was actually the steepest drop in the world when it opened, and if you're in the back row, you'll be thrown down this thing. After that, Fahrenheit has 6 fluid inversions, all of which pack in some good forces and whip. There's even a surprise moment of airtime at the end for good measure too. I know some coaster enthusiasts like to say this ride is shaky, but personally I've never felt that way and would argue that it's one of the smoother coasters in the entire park. I have basically no bad things to say about Fahrenheit. Hersheypark just happens to have 4 other roller coasters that I like more. Number 4, Candemonium, opened in 2020. Bolliger and Mabyard's Hypercoaster has been one of the most successful roller coaster models ever to be produced. They're known for their sensational moments of float or airtime and perfectly smooth track work. Well, both of those things absolutely apply to Candemonium. It's an incredibly graceful ride, even though it is the park's tallest roller coaster at 210 feet. It contrasts the rest of Hersheypark's intense thrill coasters very well and is just pure fun. Something that differentiates Candemonium from other B&M hypercoasters is in the middle of the layout you have more of a low section that focuses on intensity and quick transitions instead. There's a speed hill loaded with airtime, a quick switch to the right for a tight helix, and a funky outward bank turn onto your side. Overall, this is a very enjoyable roller coaster, and I think it would be a lot of the general public's favorite or second favorite ride in the park. Number 3, Stormrunner, opened in 2004. If you're looking for a powerhouse of a coaster, one that's short but intense the whole way through, look no further than Stormrunner. This is an Intamin accelerator coaster known for its extremely intense launch. Riders will accelerate from 0 to 72 miles per hour in 2 seconds, making for one of the most exhilarating launches in the country. Where most Intamin accelerator coasters then throw you into a top hat and that's it, maybe a few overbank curves too, Stormrunner does something a bit different. You still have your top hat with an awesome 90-degree vertical drop, but also you'll go upside down 3 separate times on this ride. My second favorite element on this coaster, even rivaling the launch, is the flying snake dive. This is a set of 2 inversions where riders rotate high above the ground and then continue rotating as they make their way down to earth. Stormrunner is such an awesome experience that unfortunately has been plagued with reliability issues, so if you see it running during your visit, try and get a ride on it sooner rather than later. Number 2, Wildcat Revenge, opened in 2023. This is what I'd argue is Hersheypark's biggest success story. For the longest time, they had this rough and unexciting wooden coaster in the back of the park called Wildcat. that. It never had a line and no one ever wanted to ride it, so the best way to fix that was by converting it into something new. Enter Rocky Mountain Construction, famous for doing just that, taking an unpopular wooden coaster and breathing new life into it with their silky smooth steel track and exciting elements. Wildcat Revenge now takes you upside down on 4 separate occasions and, more importantly, has so many moments of extremely powerful airtime. And not only does it have a lot of airtime, but it has a lot of variety in its airtime too. My favorite example are the 2 sideways moments that take place during the middle of the ride. It is absolutely incredible and unlike anything else at Hersheypark. I love the fast-paced nature of this ride, and I think its layout is near perfect given what they had to work with. Hersheypark now gets to claim the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Roller Coaster of 2023, and visitors get to experience probably one of the top 25 best coasters in the world. Amazingly though, there is one other roller coaster in the park I do slightly prefer to this one, even though I can recognize that Wildcat will probably be most people's favorite coaster here. To me, the gold medal had to be given to Sky Rush, opened in 2012. This ride has been known in the coaster enthusiast community as one of, if not the most divisive roller coaster in the world. Some love it and some hate it, so what gives? A lot of people say the restraints are really uncomfortable and the ride is too intense. For me, I can understand the thing about the restraints, but I've never found them as bad as many people make them out to be. I personally believe Sky Rush is as insane as it is because of its restraints. Since it presses your lower half down into your seat, your entire upper half is exposed in such a way to where you cannot brace for any of the elements on this ride. Sky Rush has perhaps the most demented first drop on a roller coaster, some of the most intense airtime on the planet, and sharp doses of laterals that throw your body around like a rag doll. For a lot of people, this might be a bit too much, and Sky Rush actually tends to have one of the shorter waits in the park because of it. But to a certain crowd who loves the most intense experiences possible, Sky Rush is among the best coasters in the world. There's no other ride out there like this one, and there likely won't be another coaster like it ever again in the future. So it's all the more reason for you to make your way to Hersheypark and experience it, as well as all of the other amazing coasters in the park. Let me know down in the comments what you think are the park's best coasters, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash so you don't miss any content like this in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.